morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am so happy to be here with you to share today. If you could have the key, the absolute knowledge that Jesus had when he performed miracles, and you could replicate that with 100% accuracy, how many of you would want that? A few brave souls. Well, I thought I wanted it until I started preparing for this talk. And then I realized I've had the key, that knowledge, for 10 years. And I'm still fiddling with that lock. Today I'm going to talk about how Jesus performed miracles, what we have to do to bring that into actual practice. And I'm also going to talk about some concepts that sound similar to what Jesus knew, but are not quite the same. What is it? What did Jesus know that we don't? What did he see? Like Bob's song, which was perfect, he saw only perfection. He saw only love, truth, light, and he never, ever wavered. But what did that entail? It meant that he also did not see any reality whatsoever in form. Now that's a big pill to swallow, because we deal with these bodies and this form all the time. But Jesus knew, without a doubt, that all form was just a projection from the mind. Like a movie projector, with the mind is the projector, and we project images onto the screen. All form was simply a projection onto the screen, and he never, ever forgot that. He never made darkness real. He knew that God created only love. And as Bob's song said, the mountains and the sea mirror that love. But the actual form is not real, and he didn't get fooled. What do we need to do to bring that into our lives? Is we need to make 100% commitment to look like Jesus did, to have that Christ vision from that third eye, the spiritual eye, that tells us that only love, only perfection is true, and to not get fooled by any appearances of darkness and sin and sickness. So we need to make that decision. I have found 2 textbooks that tell us exactly what to do to attain this Christ vision. They are A Course in Miracles, and some of you know I run the Course in Miracles study group on Thursdays here, and Dave Bell runs the Monday night one. And Christian Science, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Mary Baker Eddy discovered Christian Science in 1865 when she fell on the ice and almost died. She had been studying mind training and had worked with the founder of New Thought Systems, a man named Phineas Quimby, for many years in working with mind over matter, and several illnesses that she had were cured because she realized, wait a minute, my mind can control matter. But this time, when she fell on the ice and she was healed, she had a completely new revelation, which was that it wasn't mind over matter, but that mind is all there is, and that matter wasn't even there. It looks like it's there, it feels like it's there, but it's not. And she went on to develop the Christian Science Church, and over 140 years in Christian Science, the way she taught her followers to think like Jesus did and to perform miracles like Jesus did, they have hundreds of thousands of documented healings over the last 140 years. And I would encourage you to go into any Christian Science reading room and start reading them. They're fascinating. They're amazing. They can cure anything. Multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, cancer, strokes, emphysema. It doesn't matter. Because matter doesn't matter. Because it's all mind. And as A Course in Miracles says, there's no difficulty in miracles because they're all the same. Cancer is no different than a skinned knee. I'd like to read a testimony from the Christian Science Sentinel, which is the Christian Science magazine. A synopsis of this testimony. About 4.5 years ago, a growth appeared on my body. It started very small and grew at a minuscule rate. During the next several years, the growth gradually enlarged and took on an unsightly appearance. I realized I needed to identify the prominent false beliefs that underlay this physical problem. First, I believed that matter had intelligence and life and was a creative power. But this didn't appeal to my logic. Could the essence of life be located within this useless, inharmonious lump of matter? Was this ugly growth true substance? It was almost laughable to think so. Christian Science had taught me that the underlying cause or divine principle of all true existence is God, good, and that whatever is unlike God is a lie or false belief or appearance. God's goodness and love are infinite and ever-present. If this growth were good and useful, it would be universal and enjoyed by all in some equivalent manifestation. If something is real, it must be permanent, eternal, and harmonious, not chaotic, temporary, or random. Eventually, it became clear to me that what seemed like an implacable condition was nothing more than a false belief fighting a losing battle for recognition and life. In a matter of weeks, the growth shriveled up and disappeared. And there are many, many more like that. On a related topic, many of you have heard of David Hawkins, the enlightened master who wrote, I don't know if he was a master, the enlightened teacher who wrote Power versus Force. He once said that if you swat a fly, it doesn't even know it's dead. It just keeps flying around in its astral body. And I thought, how does Hawkins know that? Well, Mary Baker Eddy raised a number of people from the dead. And one of the people that she raised from the dead was her right-hand man, a guy named Calvin. And one night, Calvin got up in the middle of the night and decided to go downstairs to the pantry to eat a piece of pie. Well, he tripped on the stairs and he fell down the stairs and broke his neck and died. They summoned Mary Baker Eddy, and she worked on him like she worked on everyone, and she held the truth and said, there is no death, God only creates life, God does not know of accidents, there is no inharmony, Calvin, you are life, you are whole. And after about 30 minutes, Calvin came back and was completely well. No broken neck, no continuing ill effects at all. And somebody asked him, well, during that 30 minutes where you appeared dead, what was that like? He said, well, I just went into the pantry and had a piece of pie. Christian Science has a scientific statement of being. And when you train your mind to know these things, then you think like Jesus and can perform miracles like Jesus. The first part of this scientific statement of being states, there is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter, is physical form. A Course in Miracles also teaches the same thing, that the body has no intelligence on its own, that the body is only and always responding to the mind. So that cancer that we think attacks us and is growing because it's been affected by toxins, that's not it. It's the mind that's making the cancer grow. The workbook of A Course in Miracles has 365 lessons that tells us how to think like Jesus. And in the introduction it states, the purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. Systematic mind training to see everything differently, to see like Jesus saw, because that's how Jesus performed miracles. I'd like to go into a metaphysical concept that sounds similar, but is not the same thing as God is only love, God is only perfection. And that's the concept that God is in everything because God is all there is. Now, I would agree with that. God is in everything because God is all there is. But the way we normally say that is we will say God is in these flowers. And these flowers are absolutely beautiful. Or we would say God is in the body. Or God is in that chair because God is all there is. So if God is all there is, God has to be in everything. However, God is mind. God is thought. God is not form. So God is all there is. God is the idea of the beauty and the perfection of those flowers. God is the idea of the utility of that chair. God is the idea behind these bodies, and that the only purpose for these bodies becomes to communicate love with each other and to see only love. So God is an idea. God is mind. And as Bob's song said, the mountains and the sea mirror or reflect God's love. So when we see something like sickness or darkness or drunkenness or any types of bad behavior, those are not reflecting God's love. But we can always choose again and reflect the perfection of God, because the perfection of God, the goodness, the love, the joy, the happiness is always there. When Jesus performed miracles, he didn't see a sick body. If he saw a leper, his body's eyes saw what we all see. But his Christ vision looked completely past that to the perfect idea of that person in the mind of God. That person was already whole. And so when he healed the leper, he was not changing form. He wasn't trying to change anything because there's no form to change. He was simply holding the idea, and then that idea of perfection manifested. A Course in Miracles makes a really bold statement. And it states, at no single instant does the body exist at all. It's really radical. At no single instant does the body exist at all. So does that mean all of us in this room don't exist? What? That sounds kind of offensive in some ways, right? What, you're saying we don't exist? No, we do. We do, because we all are the life and the love of God. That's what we are. But if we think we're in a body and we think that we can get sick, or we think that we can die, or that we can be afraid, that's the false appearance. But every single one of us exists eternally in the mind of God. And the reason that Jesus didn't see form is that form, by its very nature, has to decay and die. But God cannot create unlike itself. So God never dies. It never goes away. Any of those loved ones that you think have died, that you think you might be separate from, no, they're right here. They're right here all the time. They're with you. They're not somewhere off where you have to take time to reach them. They're right here, right now. And that's what Jesus saw. He saw the perfection of heaven right here, right now. Jesus didn't think that we had to go through many, many lifetimes of karma and burn off all these awful, horrible ego traits that we have in order to get back to God. What we had to do was to see ourselves as whole and complete, as a spiritual being right here, right now. And one of the concepts that we say in metaphysical circles, and I said it for many years, was, I'm a spiritual being having a... Right, we know it. A better way to say that would be, I am a spiritual being, period. Because once you add that second half, you've created duality. You've created trouble. We all know what the human experience is, right? It's tough. We're suffering. We're struggling. We're trying to get back to God. We're trying to purify our egos so that we can get home, right? I am a spiritual being, period. That's how Jesus saw it, and that's what these two textbooks teach us to see like. The second part of the scientific statement of being in Christian Science is, in addition to there is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter, all is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation, for God is all in all. Spirit is immortal truth, matter is mortal error. Spirit is the real and eternal, matter is the unreal and temporal. Spirit is God, and man is his image and likeness. Therefore, man is not material, he is spiritual. When Jesus healed the blind man, he reached down into the dirt and spit into it and made some mud. And then he put that mud on the blind man's eyes. That was just for show. He wasn't trying to change the blind man's eyes. He just knew that the man was perfect and whole, and that eyesight would reflect the wholeness of God that was already there. A Course in Miracles makes a statement about miracles and says, a miracle is a correction. It's a correction for our false perception of illness and darkness. A miracle does not create nor really change at all. So we tend to think of miracles as making something different, taking a sick body and making the sick body well. But A Course in Miracles states that a sick body or a healthy body is an equal illusion. They're both figments of our mind, but that only health and wholeness reflects God's love and light. The miracle merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. There's another good passage here in Lesson 158, and this is how Jesus saw people. Christ's vision has one law. It does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched, of purity undimmed by errors. That's how Jesus sees every one of us in this room. And it's how we can start to see. And when we stop believing in the appearances of darkness in form, the peace, the joy, the love that comes through as our natural state is marvelous. What must we do to bring this into our being? That's where the decision comes in. Most of us are used to seeing form. Of course, it's what we do. That's what body's eyes are made to do. They're made to see form. They're made to see separations, separate bodies, separate chairs, separate individual interests. That's what bodies do. But to get past that, we have to make a concerted decision to see differently, to see as Jesus saw when he created miracles. When Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fishes and said, there's thousands of people here, how are we going to feed them with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes? He didn't see lack in only 5 loaves and 2 fishes and thousands of people. All he saw was the idea of God's truth and abundance and wholeness and providing every possible need that we could seem to have in physical form. And that way, the 5 loaves and 2 fishes became so much that there were 12 baskets left over. And 12 is that symbolic number of wholeness that we see. In A Course in Miracles, there's a section called How is Healing Accomplished? And the subtitle is The Shift in Perception. Healing must occur in exact proportion to which the valuelessness of sickness is recognized. One need but say, there is no gain at all to me in this, and he is healed. But to say this, one first must recognize certain facts. First, it is obvious that decisions are of the mind, not of the body. If sickness is but a faulty problem-solving approach, it is a decision. And if it is a decision, it is the mind and not the body that makes it. The resistance to recognizing this is enormous because the existence of the world as you perceive it depends on the body being the decision maker. This is where, when I started preparing for this talk, I saw my whole enormous resistance. Because I did what I had done perhaps 100 times in the last couple of years. I looked in the mirror and I said, this spot is still not healed. What is going on? I'm doing my Course in Miracles lessons. I'm studying Christian Science. What is going on? God, you are not helping me at all. But my tantrum only lasted about a minute because I quickly went, wait, you looked in the body, you believed what you saw. You didn't see the perfect reflection of God. You didn't see yourself as a perfect spiritual being. You saw yourself as a body, and not only as a body, but as a body that's flawed and has an illness. And so where I used to melt down for hours or days, just ask Rod how I used to melt down. Throw things, break things, want to die, get depressed, all this stuff, because nothing works here. It was over in a minute, because my mind has healed enough to where I just can't believe what I see anymore. I can't make it real like I used to. And boy, the peace of mind that has come with that, the happiness and the joy, it's wonderful. When Jesus healed the man that was paralyzed for 38 years and was lying by the pool of Bethesda waiting for the waters to move, but he could never get in first because he couldn't move, Jesus looked at him and said, do you wish to be healed? And when he saw that that man had a firm decision to be healed, the man was healed. And that's what we have to do. When I look in the mirror and I see a spot or I see an illness, I go, oops, there's a part of my mind that I still haven't decided to heal. Get back on track. Be committed to my firm Christ vision. And the more you do that, the happier you are, and the outpicturing of that will reflect God's love and wholeness. In summary, Jesus performed miracles by seeing only love, only light, only truth, and he never ever made the mistake of making form, which creates illness and darkness, real. He saw the reflections of beauty in form. He saw the mountains, he saw the trees, he saw the night sky and the flowers, and he loved them all. And we can love all those without making the form real, because we love the truth that when these flowers die, the flowers still bloom and are beautiful in our minds. They're eternal. The way we bring that into our lives and become miracle-minded is with that firm 100% commitment to seeing only with our Christ vision. I'd like to leave you with a passage from A Course in Miracles, lesson 152, which is titled, "The Power of Decision is My Own." Let us today be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. The power of decision is our own. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. The power of decision is our own. And we accept of him that which we are and humbly recognize the Son of God. To recognize God's Son implies as well that all self-concepts have been laid aside and recognized as false. And in humility, the radiance of God's Son, all of us, his gentleness, his perfect sinlessness, his Father's love, his right to heaven and release from hell, are joyously accepted as our own. Namaste.
Namaste.